So, we're continuing on with Genesis. I'm going to move through the Bible this year. And at first it was just going to be one book a month, but Genesis is too wealthy to just put into 1 week. And this week is on the last allegory in Genesis, which is the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel is all about communication, or miscommunication, as it were. About the story we're telling ourselves about God. And if I'm telling myself the wrong story about God, I'm telling myself the wrong story about myself. And the point in the Tower of Babel is that they're trying to get closer to God and the world, instead of seeking to understand the world by being closer to God. They come together and they try to build this building. And I'll read you the Bible story. What the heck? Yeah, it's funny. I listened to Ken tell that story. Does anybody ever feel that you come to Unity and you don't have a clue what they're talking about? I know you were saying good words, but I don't understand a word you said today. Because the words of Spirit will not fix the world. Because the world's not broken. So in Genesis chapter 11, it says, "Now the whole earth had one language and few words. And as men migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, 'Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly.' And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with a top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth.' And then it says, 'And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built.'" Now, what we have to understand in this, we've got to do our metaphysics. Lord doesn't mean some old man came down from the sky to judge them. What it means is the law came. Spiritual law came upon this event. Because it can't not. Whatever we try to do, law is always present to show us the results of where we have hit the mark and where we have missed the mark. Always. Oh, it doesn't come to punish us for missing the mark. It's just the results. The Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." Well, that worked out pretty well. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. So this serves a couple of purposes. One is to help people understand, why are we speaking in different languages? I marvel that there are people who think that is history. I just marvel that somebody would read this and think, well, that really happened that way. But what Babel means is confusion. What this is to do is to help us with our confusion. Because you see, we can come to church and we read a wonderful spiritual book, read Charles Fillmore, read Myrtle Fillmore, read Emily Cady, read so many of our New Thought truth writers and teachers, and think, oh, that's fantastic. That is just, yes, that is it. And then something will happen in the world, and we'll forget all about that, and we'll think the world is the real thing. You know, we'll think, oh, well, you don't understand that. This is reality, Shawn. We're not talking about these theoretical things you speak of. We're talking about reality. We're talking about my job. We're talking about the cement in the streets. We're talking about car accidents. We're talking about bodies falling apart. We're talking about taxes. And it's like, no, that's just all part of the game that we're playing in the world. We need to see these things correctly, which means we need to see them from Spirit. We need to see them from spirit. And that song Kenneth was singing was all about trying to be understood. Trying to, won't somebody talk to me, please? Which means, won't somebody hear my heart? Won't somebody please hear my heart? My heart speak. But the problem is, if I'm not speaking from my heart, how is somebody going to hear? Because would you please discern through my confusion what I want to say? Well, we could do that if we wanted to, and here's how. Assume everybody wants to be loved. Assume with everything everyone is saying, they just want to be loved. Just make that assumption, and then you will know what they are saying. And then somebody, you get this one, but that's not what I'm saying. And then, yes, it is. That is absolutely what it is. I used to have a friend, and we'd drink together. And he liked to argue. It was just what he liked to do. Not fight, but argue. He liked the controversy of it all. And I decided to test him once. And in mid-conversation, I switched and agreed with him. And you know he switched to the other side. He went back to the other point. Oh, no, Shawn, you don't understand. It says, what are you talking about? I just agreed with you. Yeah, but da-da-da-da-da. And he liked the controversy. That was what he loved. And so what he's saying through all that is, love me, while I'm playing the controversy game. That's the thing. That's what you're saying. You're saying, love me. Love me. That's what I'm saying. Love me. In all my stuff. In all of my confusion. Ignore everything I'm saying in our conversation and love me. And we all probably have somebody in our lives where we're able to do that with. Many parents are able to love a child through their confusion. They get it. The child is saying, I need to be loved, even though they've got a million reasons. And some parents, the narcissism kicks in, and the parent is screaming at the child, love me, even though I'm hitting you. Love me, even though I'm abusing you. And, so it works both ways, because it depends where the transference goes, and who's got a stronger temper tantrum, quite frankly. But if we assume that the language is everyone is asking to be loved, and show me I am lovable. Now, we can start practicing that in traffic. I know I use traffic for a lot of examples here, because we all live near 95 in the Merritts. And what a great way to start practicing that the request is love. The prayer request today is love. Oh, they're competing with me on the road. But wait a minute, competition doesn't exist, so what they're asking is that I love them. Is it within me to love them? Is it within me to love them? The answer is yes. And some days we might think, no, it is not. I refuse to love anyone today, because I don't feel loved. And that's not a feeling, quite frankly, that's a thought. What I'm saying is, I don't think I am loved. I had to laugh, the Hoovers at open mic last night. You heard Mark singing. Oh, yeah. Mark singing so beautifully. And he felt he could not apologize enough for how awful he was. And then we're sitting over at PJ Ryan's afterwards, and person after person after person says, you were wonderful, please come back. You were wonderful, please come back. You were wonderful. Because he had a cold and he wasn't hearing from the inside the notes. For some whatever reason, he was telling himself the story that he was not lovable last night. I'm sure most of us could identify with that. And when he came up to me afterwards and said, I'm so sorry. And I said, let me tell you what you have to apologize for. You have to apologize for apologizing. You walked up on that stage, you were amazing, and then you apologized. I said, don't ever do that again, please. I've asked you before not to do it. Don't do it again. Let people create their own story of you. You are amazing. You are talented. At your worst, you are amazing. And many of us, at our worst, we are amazing at what we're good at. And if we would just allow ourselves to be good at what we are good at, instead of creating the story that says, please love me even though I hate myself. Please love me even though I'm just not worthy. Please love, because somebody else told us they didn't love us. We believed it. And that's the confusion. Therein we go to the Tower of Babel. The confusion in language. And I believe me, I've had this issue a lot in my life because I tend to take things literally. And so I tend to believe what the words someone says instead of, trying to see past the word and admit, wait a minute, I am loved by God, so therefore I am loved by this being no matter what they are saying to me. And, many of us have people in our lives who want to change and turn it into an argument. Or they forget who they are. They just forget who they are. But if I stop needing them, you, them, him, me, to say the words I want to hear, and I start deciding, wait a minute, as God is for me, nothing can be against me. And I'm not going to prove I am loved by building a tower in the world, by building up something in the world that says I am amazing. And you know what? In the allegory, they're trying to build a tower up into the heavens to be closer to God, to build a tower out of brick, to build a tower out of the world in order to prove the worthiness, to prove the connection. And I don't have to do that, and you don't have to do that, and we don't have to do that. From right where we sit, from right where I stand, from right where I think, I can acknowledge I'm a beloved child of God, and I can't be anything else. And I don't need to use one instance to argue that point. I don't have to use pain in my body. I don't have to use the way somebody looks at me today. I don't have to use politics. I don't have to use Facebook. I don't have to use social media in general. I don't have to use the news. And I don't have to use my past to tell me I am less than anything good that God is. I don't have to. I might, but I don't have to. I don't have to confuse the language anymore by trying to use the world to prove my worthiness. The world is an experience, not a validation. The world is not proof. The people that won the Powerball are no more loved by God this week than you and I. Are you looking like maybe they are? I love the look at her face. Well, maybe they are. Oh, that's a good one. But it can't be true. It was just their time to get a bunch of cash. But if they drop dead this week, they can't take in the cash with them. And if they live this week, they'll make decisions with that cash, just as all of us will make the decision with whatever cash we happen to have. But what if we could stop trying to validate ourselves or invalidate ourselves with numbers? Why use numbers to tell ourselves? And that book of the Bible will be coming up. I don't have many stories from the book of Numbers yet, but to use numbers to tell myself I am good or I am bad. And when you look at it that way, doesn't it seem foolish? I'm going to use numbers to tell myself whether I am good, whether I am bad, whether you are good, whether you are bad, whether you're worthy of the kingdom or not worthy of the kingdom. Numbers. Numbers. Paper. I will use paper and metal discs to validate our existence, as if our existence here on earth is the validation. It can't be true. It can't be logical. So those people, when they moved east and they moved there and said, you know what, let's build up a tower. A tower of validation. Let me read a couple of other little things. Let There Be Light, Elizabeth Sam Turner. And it's Old Testament metaphysical interpretation is this book. It's an old book. I think we still have it in the bookstore though. It says, the final allegory is the Tower of Babel. The descendants of Noah eventually became very ambitious and built a city, and then began to build a tower that they hoped would reach to heaven. Their idea was a material one, for they built with bricks and mortar, symbols of the material, and their project was therefore doomed to failure. Do we hear that? It's not telling you, if you want to build a building here, you go ahead and do it, but do it under spiritual law rather than to try to get. One does not reach heaven by material means, no matter how clever he may be. There's a connection between earth and heaven. The ladder that Jacob saw symbolizes the relation between the inner spiritual realm and the outer plane of manifestation. The Tower of Babel, however, is symbolic of man's effort to work without God. The name itself means confusion and represents the mental chaos that is the result of thinking from a wholly material standpoint. The Lord, or the law, confused the speech of the people so that they no longer understood one another, and he scattered them upon the face of all the earth. Men fight because they do not understand one another. They have diverse interests, and each pursues his own selfish ends. The Tower of Babel stands for self-sacrifice. The spiritual dictum is, the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and that's from Matthew. Self-service leads to confusion and the scattering of man's forces. Service to God and to others enables man to speak in the tongue all know as their own. This the apostles did after being endued. So I like to use the terms self-conscious or God-conscious. Whenever I encourage someone to get on a stage, to speak, to sing, to do whatever, I always talk about the differences between being self-conscious or God-conscious. And self-conscious is the one who wonders, what are they thinking of me? Oh, they think I screwed up that, and they did, I forgot that lyric, and I did this, and see, it's a big mess. All the while singing a song. And I've seen so many people do it over the years. And when I first started getting up on stage at church and speaking, I was extremely self-conscious. I had to read everything off of cards. I was so nervous because I was afraid of what everyone was thinking of me. Clearly that is not the case any longer. And so but I remember doing I think it was the love offering prayer. The first time I was platform assistant for Unity of New York. And was it that one or maybe it was the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us, love of God enfolds us, power of God protects us, presence of God watches over us. Whatever it was kind of like spelling Mississippi. I couldn't figure out how to end it. I was so self-conscious and so embarrassed. I was embarrassed to be up in front of everybody as if I wasn't somehow worthy. And that lasted 1 week. And I decided after that, you know what? Nobody really cares that much about me up on that stage. What they want is a spiritual message in every aspect. And so after that, I threw away the cards. And then I prepared. But I didn't, and then when I became full-time minister, I would write script every week and do it, and then I'd go off on tangents, and my talks would go 45 minutes. But and then one day I thought, I don't want to write a talk anymore. And I was at Unity of New York on a great big stage, and I thought, no, I want to use the whole stage. So I haven't written a talk since. I prepare, I know what I'm going to read and everything, but it's no longer worrying about, what if somebody doesn't like what I'm saying? What if somebody, and now I hope there's somebody who doesn't like what I'm saying. I hope that somebody is so uncomfortable with what I'm saying, and that's what Kenneth's saying about, somebody that's so uncomfortable. It's the same thing I do with my cabaret act. I had to laugh because one critic said, well, I was worried about what the women in your parish would think about your language. And I said, they're the ones that don't have a problem with it. It's the people outside the church that seem to have a problem, and I will not repeat that language here, but somebody came up to me in the receiving line after the 30th and called me one of the words I used in the show, and I thought, oh, that's great. That is just great. And okay. But if we're not going to shake each other up, to look within and say, what am I thinking? How could I think differently? How could I communicate the true language, which is love? How do I communicate love today? Well, you start with, I'm being asked to love everybody. Everybody's asking me to love them. I thought I was just the one asking everybody to love me. But no, everybody's asking me to love them. So I'm going to have to step up to the plate, and I'm going to have to learn about the language of love. On your bulletin, the title of the talk, it says, our Babel can't be done. What it means is, I can't communicate love in any language except the language of love. And so you see, there is one universal language that has no confusion, and it is the language of love. And so today I really invite you to take with you, they're just asking me to love them. Am I up to it today? And then you pray. Am I up to it today? And then I pray. Am I up to it today? And then I pray. And then I get my answer. Thank you.